Welcome to the Monday Muse. Today, we're going to talk about authenticity. I was recently asked to speak at a large financial conference on this topic, and it's a word that's thrown around quite a bit. And I think it's really important to begin to put some of the things that we learn on this podcast and all the other really wonderful ones out there in the context of what authenticity really is. Much like intuition, it's a word that I think is kind of misunderstood. So the first thing that I want to say is that, I'm saying this as someone who has always been told, oh, you're authentic, and taken a lot of pride in that. In fact, when I was a kid, my aunt gave me a copy of The Velveteen Rabbit, which is a story about a stuffed rabbit that becomes real. And in the beginning, she wrote, "To Abby, the realest 7-year-old anyone ever knew." And I've always prided myself on that. Oh, I'm authentic and all of that, all of those things. And that's a great way to be. However, as it turns out, it's really harder to be authentic than we really realize. It really takes a lot of intention. And it's not that I don't try, and it's not that I don't feel that I am authentic a lot of the time, but I'm also acutely aware of how often I am not great to my best efforts, even if other people maybe think that I am. And that's because only you know what's happening inside of you. Only you know when you're feeling insecure, or if something's coming up that is causing you to behave in a way that you walk away and say, oh, I didn't really like the way I showed up there, or just to feel a little nervous. Does that person think I'm all that in a bag of chips? And whatever it is that you walk away thinking, or does that person think I'm an idiot? They think I don't know what I'm thinking. If you're walking away with any of those emotions, then that was driving you and you weren't authentic. And you know that because when you are truly authentic, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, you don't walk away having any of those fears or insecurities or any of that. But let's talk about why it's hard to be authentic as much as we think we may be. And the reason has to do, first and foremost, with our evolution. We have literally been evolving for survival. And survival means that years and years and years and years and years ago, right? Survival meant that you were part of a tribe. And if you did not fit into that tribe, you were going to die. Plain and simple. Everybody had a role. You needed to do the things you needed to do. If you were cast out by that tribe, then you weren't going to be able to survive. You weren't going to be able to find the food and be able to prepare the food and do everything on your own. It just, the way that we used to live, one person could not do all of those things the way that someone can do them now. What does that mean? That means that we have a underlying survival primer driver to belong, to matter, to be part of a community, right? And so there is always this egoic question that is running underneath all of us. Do I belong? Do I matter? And am I enough? That's always running in the background. And what we know, of course, is that 95% of who we are by the time we're in our mid-30s is this unconscious set of thoughts and emotions and behaviors and perceptions and beliefs that drive us around our life, kind of like on a silent hybrid engine. A hybrid engine, you can't really hear it, at least I can't hear mine. That's why they have that beep, beep, beep when you back up, and yet it's driving you around. And that's what these drivers are doing. So let's think about what that sounds like, right? If that's happening and you have those unconscious drivers going on, then you're going to show up to a situation with your best intentions of being authentic. And yet you're going to find yourself maybe saying things to be liked, or saying things to be funny, or any number of things, right? Or apologizing all over the place for yourself, or whatever it might be, or inflating yourself, talking up how things are going because you want to put a certain foot forward, right? So, or talking down yourself, being self-degradation because you don't want people to think that think too much of yourself. all of these things are constantly happening for us all the time. And I'll give you a great example. When I go out, let's say I go to a dinner party or something, people I don't really know or something, I will often make jokes. And often those jokes are sometimes at the expense of my husband, who I love dearly, but it's my automatic program. It's my machine. I make a joke and I know that it was at his expense because he gets irritated with me. And so I hear about it later, right? And the buffer that I throw up to that is like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. And why didn't I say so many complimentary things about you? Why are you perseverating on that? And all of that is true. However, it's also true that he's been asking me for years not to do that. And yet my machine, my mind and my body, it just comes out because of this maybe unconscious when I review it, when I look back on it and think, oh, you know what? I did kind of want to make somebody laugh because I wanted to fit in. And, that was the easiest thing. And even though maybe it was completely benign and no one else thought it wasn't, the point is he doesn't like it. And I did it totally unconsciously. And that is inauthentic, right? If you think about your saboteurs, what saboteur is driving your behavior? If you're an avoider and there's an incident, something that you don't feel right about, that you feel strongly that needs to be addressed or shouldn't be the way that it is, and you don't address it because your avoider saboteur is telling you that the best way to handle things is just to let everything be because it's nervous about what's going to happen if you do address it, then you're being inauthentic. You are not authentically showing up with like, hey, this is how I feel about this. If your pleaser saboteur is running around trying to make everybody else happy because it's telling you that the way to solve a problem or make sure everybody's safe is just to make sure that everybody else is happy, and then you turn up resentful later or whatever it is, that's not authentic. That's not being your authentic self. So it actually takes more intention than we realize to be authentic. And so I really don't, I notice that word being thrown around all the time. And I feel that we have to be real with ourselves, right? We need to have a come to Jesus, for a lack of a better term. And it's okay, right? It's okay that we were feeling like an imposter that day, so we showed up a little funky. It's okay that, we got threatened by something that someone said. And so we then postured a little. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's okay that we fell into a shame spiral, or we, whatever happened. It's all of it is fine. It's normal. It's going to happen. But if you truly want to have authenticity and you truly want to have authentic relationships, it requires a level of self-observation, a level of attention to what's happening in your inner world that you very likely don't realize that it takes. And you will begin to notice this with the people around you as well. If you want to attract people who are truly authentic, then you're going to begin to notice the way that you feel inside yourself when you're around them. And if something feels off, it's likely because one or the other of you isn't really showing up completely authentically because they don't feel safe enough, not because necessarily there's anything not to feel safe about. Might be that it's, this isn't a good connection. I shouldn't really be saying these things or whatever. But even more likely, not feeling safe enough because we've simply evolved that way. And that is the way that our unconscious program is working in that moment. If this was helpful to you or interesting or titillating or whatever, please subscribe, follow, whatever, all the things. Leave a review so that other people can find this kind of thing. Share it. And I would love to hear how you think about authenticity and how you plan to use it moving forward by becoming more aware of what's happening in your inner world. We will see you next time on the Monday Muse.